Great. Okay. So, hello, everybody. Thank you again for joining the GenAI for Good um, Challenge Technical Office Hours. My name is Antonia Nichols, and I am a program manager at the Humanitarian Technologies and Impact at IEEE. Thank you for joining us today. I want to welcome you, and we will get started by discussing a little bit about what is the challenge, as well as what is IEEE, a little bit about ITU, and then we'll jump into questions. So a little bit about IEEE for those who are new to us. Some of you may already be familiar. IEEE stands for the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers and is the biggest engineering society in the world with more than 500,000 members in 190 countries. We do many things, but the one we are most known for is standards. We have developed over 1,079 standards and many more standards are under development, excuse me. We also have organized over 2,000 technical conferences a year across the world. IEEE publishes nearly a third of the world's technical literature in electrical engineering, computing, and electronics, including leading journals, magazines, books, and standards. Aside from this, we also run programs to advance technology for the benefit of humanity. So IEEE Humanitarian Technologies is IEEE's Tech for Social Impact Hub. We've developed the support initiative programs that apply technology to achieve positive social, economic, environmental, and humanitarian impact at scale. I'm now going to pass this over to my colleague, David Manset, Senior Advisor, Open Source and Digital Public Infrastructure at ITU.
Thank you very much, Antonia. So I'm David Manset, working for the ITU Development Bureau. We are co-organizing this challenge with IEEE, and ITU, for those who do not know about it, is the UN specialized agency on information and communication technologies. We have 3 different bureaus taking care respectively of radio, telecommunications, standardization, and development. That's precisely development that is at stake here because we are supporting the challenge in its technical framework and implementation, but also relationship with the countries. And this is also taking part of our AI for Good global initiative on everything that relates to artificial intelligence, where we have a network of about 40,000 people. So we are super happy to support this challenge and to answer any questions. And I give the floor back to you, Antonia, no, sorry, just one more slide. So as you know, the GenAI for Good Challenge is a global initiative. It's co-designed between IEEE Humanitarian Technologies and ITU Development Bureau. We are seeking to receive applications for real developments, real deployments in 3 public sectors: healthcare, agriculture, and climate, for each of which we've identified a country with concrete requirements and for which we are teaming up with UN specialized agency on the field to help better specifying the requirements and orientating the developments. All this is going to be done thanks to a technical framework that ITU has been coordinating and is contributing to, which is called GENIE.AI. GENIE.AI is an open source set of software stacks that are aimed to facilitate the developments of an open source generative artificial intelligence. So it provides the means to connect LLMs, to combine them with RAGs, retrieval-augmented generation, and to fine-tune the artificial intelligence to the present use cases. And it's really meant to make you focus on the actual innovation you want to develop, deploy, and test at scale within the 3 use cases, because what we are seeking is really to make an impact. That's the reason why this challenge is actually planned over a 3-month time scale. Over to you, Antonia.
Thank you, David. Now I'm going to quickly do an overview of the 3 use case areas, and the specific use cases are agriculture, health, and climate. In agriculture, we are focusing on the development of AI agriculture and extension chatbot in Lesotho, which aims to boost farmer productivity and resilience by equipping agricultural advisors with timely, localized, and actionable digital guidance. For health, we are focusing on an AI chatbot for prevention and control of non-communicable diseases in Gambia, aims to reduce the incidence and complications of NCDs by delivering evidence-based awareness, messages, and behavioral change. And then the last is climate, which is AI-powered extreme weather advisor in Bangladesh, aims to strengthen climate resilience by providing timely early warnings, safety advice, and localized guidance through accessible multilingual channels. These are the focus of the initial use cases in these three countries, but it is a global competition, and applicants do not have to be located in these countries in order to apply to the different use case areas. So we hope that this gives you a brief summary to start. We are going to jump into questions now. However, this slide does show a little bit of how to reach us if you have any questions in the next couple weeks before your application is due. And I will also put this information in the chat as well as our inquiry form for you all to have in just a moment. A little bit challenging to send while I'm also sharing the screen. But I will send it in just a moment. So I'm going to pass this back over to David and your team at ITU to start answering questions. If anything comes up, we can also send them in the chat, or you can raise your hand.
Thank you very much, Antonia. I think Roman and David Forden have joined the call as well. So if they are, I would suggest they just open their cameras just to signal themselves and be able to respond to the technical questions. I also suggest we start with the questions we've gathered previously to this meeting from the online spreadsheet, and then we can take any questions from the floor in this call. So I will try and quickly go through the dozen of questions we've received. The first is from Mohamed Abdullahi from Computer Application Department of Jamhuriya University of Science and Technology in Mogadishu, Somalia. So in a context like Somalia, where digital infrastructure and data resources are still developing, how can universities like ours design GenAI projects that fit well within the GenAI framework and social impact? I may give it a first go, saying that, as Antonia stressed, even though we have three countries in three public sectors, well defined for the use cases of the challenge, we expect applications worldwide, so they are not bound to the sole countries identified for the three use cases, for one. Second, we do provide training data sets, initial training data sets for each and every use cases. So you do not need to forcefully come up with additional data, but it's of course encouraged to add pertinent data as you need, corresponding to the innovation you're planning. Maybe David, you want to say a few words on that particular aspect, I believe.
Yeah, sure. I think the question was more aligned around, how do they go about securing the right resources and designing use cases and so on. So actually, like David just said, for the challenge itself, we've identified the three specific use cases and specific countries, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you're a participant, you'll be supplied with the hosting and the GPU resources to develop that particular use case. But if you've got a different project that you want to consider using GenieAI for, I suggest you reach out to us and we can discuss that and help advise you on what you're going to need in terms of, developing a decent product based on our framework.
Thank you, David. I think we can move to the next question. Next question is on health related aspects. So, hello, I'm developing an AI-powered assistive technology project related to the Braille system for visually impaired users. I wanted to ask if projects focused on accessibility and inclusion, like Braille-based solutions, are eligible under your challenge, even though the listed focus areas are agriculture, health, and climate. So I think, but David, Roman, correct me if I'm wrong. Braille system can be one of the extensions possibly developed to interact with the foreseen innovations in the free use cases areas, right?
Yeah, I guess there's potentially a use case for Braille in some of the use cases, but at the end of the day, it's really incumbent on the participants to analyze the use case and the solution to the use case. And if they ascertain that Braille is definitely something that's required and they think it adds value, then I suggest that they articulate that value and the specifics of, why that makes their particular proposal stand out. And then, of course, if they're going to implement Braille support, then how is that going to be implemented? And provide some details of how that support is intended to be implemented on our framework. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do you want me to add any more to that?
No, I think it does. I think it does. And that's part of the actual inclusion aspect of the projects we are seeking. So any means and ways to better interact with the free use cases developments are really welcome. Third question, we are the Global Health Institute at the American University of Beirut. I am the program associate of the CLI Health program, which focuses on assessing the impacts of climate change on health and exploring strategies to strengthen health system and community resilience, with a particular emphasis on disadvantaged and vulnerable groups. We are very interested in exploring how we can align with the extreme weather advisor country, Bangladesh, focus area of the GenAI for Good challenge. So the question is, as an academic institution working at the intersection of research and innovation in climate, health, and justice, is our program eligible to apply to this focus area? So I think we faced this a similar question during the last call, and what we said, which is still valid, is that if the proposed program addresses the requirements of one of the three use cases that are proposed as part of the challenge, and the expected developments do integrate the technical framework that has been provided, then it's entirely applicable and receivable as an application to our GenAI for Good challenge. I don't know if, Antonia, if you want to add anything to this.
David, the question cut out for just a second. Do you mind repeating it so that I can answer it in full?
So the question comes with a background. So it's actually a university, an academic partner that has already an initiative ongoing related to climate and impact on health. And basically, they are asking if their initiative could enter that challenge. And so what I said is that provided this initiative does develop something innovative that addresses the use cases requirements and well integrates the actual technical framework that is provided, then of course it is receivable. It is acceptable as an application.
Yes, thank you. I would like to add, though, however, that applicants do have to apply as individuals. And so the recommendation is that you apply as individuals due to the fact that the award is distributed that way. So if you have follow-up questions, I think David answered it thoroughly. You can participate with the work you're already doing. However, you have to join as individuals in order to participate.
Yes. Could you also just precise, because we said also they have the possibility to team up and therefore address the complex requirements of the three areas of our challenge as a team. So could you just address this in the light of what you just said?
Yes, so I will elaborate here. As individuals means that you cannot be an entity, so not an organization, not a company, but you can be a team of of collective individuals who are applying together with those shared skills that David just emphasized.
Thank you very much, Antonia. And I think that the next question is actually one for you, because that relates also to the contest rules. Is there any age limit for the startup funder? And I think that by startup funder, the actual applicant is referring to the individual applying to the challenge.
You must be 18 years or older. So that's the limit. There's a lower limit, not not an upper limit. But 18 years plus, and you're able to apply.
Perfect. And the next question is more administrative. Are there any guidelines on how to write the proposal? What needs to be in the proposal and does not need to be in there?
Yeah, so my recommendation is that you read through everything on the Fountain platform. The instructions, I think, are cover everything that you will need to cover in your application, as well as the contest rules are the two places I would look to make sure that you are within um, the guidelines of what you can submit for this competition. You also should take a look at the use case in detail. There is one specific link that allows you to download the use case. Applications should be addressing that use case. So there are many great ideas out there that are generative and could contribute to the sectors, but we are looking for solutions that are specifically to the use case. So please take a look at those three places. Outside of that, there are not specific, additional instructions or one page that says yes and no, because it's a combination of these three places that will have what we would like you to develop.
And if I may add to this, the Fountain platform is actually the one platform you access once you want to apply for the challenge. So you'll be redirected to that system, which is hosted by IEEE, and you will be provided with the instructions online. All right, so next questions. So from the challenge documentation, I understand that GENIE.AI serves as the open source reference framework to be used or aligned with during solution development. However, I would like to confirm the following to ensure proper application. So in terms of availability, first, is the GENIE.AI framework, including its source code, APIs, or reference architecture, currently available for participants to access? If yes, could you please share the repository link and documentation portal? I think David or Roman, you may want to address this, but maybe I can give just a general answer before you enter into more details. We are basically in the first phase of the application, so normally all resources required to build your application and submit are posted on the website for each and every 3 use cases. But David, Roman, please add to this to answer the question.
Sure. I was going to let Roman speak, but I guess I started speaking, so that's cool. I just posted a link to the public repository in the chat. So bear in mind, this is actually a read-only repository, so we won't be receiving any issues or anything like that. Like David said, the stage we're at now, really the code's provided as a guideline to help you to formulate your proposals rather than for specifics around development. But once we've selected the finalists, then they're going to be given a specific branch in the base repository which they can work on. And later on, obviously, we'll be potentially leveraging some of that code as well, because it's going to be open source, just like everything else. So that's the thing about what we're doing. It's built around permissive open source licenses. So specifically Apache 2.0. You can look at the public repository and fundamentally you can download it and just do whatever you want with it. If you want to build a project with it right now, feel free to go right ahead. It's free.
Thank you very much, David. I think that as far as APIs, reference architecture are concerned, these are documents they can find in the useful resources on the website of the challenge, right?
Yeah, correct. I think there's like a specific page that's been put together with all the resource links, and I know for certain that the links to our Confluence site are all included there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, David. Now, still from the same applicant, on the scope of requirements for phase 1, are teams expected to directly build upon GENIE.AI framework, or is architectural alignment and conceptual compatibility sufficient at this stage? I think you've answered this question. The answer being that we are not seeking source code contributions at this stage, but rather a design proposal, and therefore a design proposal that aligns with the technical framework that is provided. Do you want to add anything, David or Roman?
I think the question sounded a little more like they wanted a bit of latitude in terms of how they develop the product if they become a finalist. So just to be very clear, we require everyone to use GenieAI and contribute to the framework if they're going to put any extensions into their solution.
Yes, but the question was really related to how much they should go technical. The question is whether they have to directly build upon GENIE.AI framework in this phase one, or if they can come up with architectural alignment and conceptual compatibility at this stage.
Well, we'd expect both of those things. If you're going to put a technical proposal together, then obviously the technical base for it has to be GenieAI. So we'd expect to see that in the proposal. And any extensions or added value that you propose, we would expect that you articulate that very well in the proposal so that the people who are evaluating the proposals can get a good sense of how much value this is going to add, not only to the host country and their use case, but to the framework and the ongoing development of the framework itself.
Thank you, David. So point well taken. Still from the same applicant on the integration timeline. If the GENIE.AI toolkit is not yet publicly released, when is it expected to become accessible for prototype development? I think, again, you said it, but just to repeat, over phase two, if you could just tell them again.
Or yeah. So there's nothing to stop you from just doing a Git clone right now if you want to. If you've got the resources, you've got a GPU available, and you've got a host with 64 gigs of RAM and half a terabyte of SSD, then just go right ahead. There's nothing preventing you from doing that if you want to build a project with it. In terms of the actual challenge, like David said a couple of times, the code's been provided for now as to provide some guidelines for you to put your proposal together. It's publicly available now, so you can do whatever you want with it. Just don't expect technical support from us if you're going to start building something right now. That's all.
Yeah, but just to be fair with all participants, especially those not having access to actual compute infrastructure, in this phase one, you're not expected to come up with actual source code. You're being provided with a read-only source code repository, so you can have access, if you will, if you are interested to get into the source code. But we are not expecting in this phase for the application any source code contribution. We are expecting a design proposal. And for this, you just have to make the case how this will integrate the provided technical framework and how you are intending to address the requirements and in which innovative ways. The other thing I wanted to say is that during phase two, once the finalists, semi-finalists will be selected to access the challenge itself, they will, of course, be provided not only with an actual source code repository where they can commit to, and as David said, there will be a specific branch for this purpose, but also compute infrastructure so they can train and run their own models as per the requirements. And this should happen post semi-finalist selection, which is late January. Next question, which is the minimum number of members in a team to apply? Is one only member allowed? I think
I can
Antonia.
jump in here, David. Yeah, so it is. I think the key piece here is that you will be evaluated on your on the team's ability to successfully create and implement the solution. And so, absolutely, sometimes there's benefits to having less people, sometimes there's benefits to having more people. It's all about the structure that you present to us. So the answer is yes, you can, and think about whether you are able to fulfill the needs of the competition as an individual.
Thank you, Antonia. Next question. So since the competition is open to all, how about the multilingual feature in the chatbot since we don't know the local language, Sesotho, Basotho, Soto? Is there any kind of data set we can get and about the GenAI framework, is there a fixed module we can use or further extend? I think this is rather technical, and I think we had a similar question in the previous call, actually. I think the multilingual feature is something we are looking for, especially to cope with diverse languages in the various countries. I don't know, maybe David, you can further precise whether there are already available data sets in the different languages.
Sure. So let me be very clear about this. The backend that we're providing as a default base, i.e., the one that's been tested, is based on an English backend. Now, the front end and all the various different UI elements and the way that the application works supports 11 different languages already. It's very easy to implement another language. If you want to use a different language in the back end, the framework can be configured to do that. It'll end up being more complicated. Just my opinion on that, having written a lot of the code on it. I feel that the best approach for you is to just stick to the base that we're using now in English. And when you curate your data, curate all the data in English to provide the RAG solution. Now, we don't do any model training. If you're going to do a model training or an ML job, that's on you. If you need to train a specific model to do something different, that'll be something that you'll need to manage yourselves. Maybe Roman's got a few comments on this. I know that Roman's put a lot of effort into the translation side as well.
Yes, to a varying degree of success. But the way it works currently is, as David said, all the backend logic, including the embedding models, the re-ranker, all the vectors, all the text chunks, they are stored in English. And what happens is, on the way in, there is a translation module that translates everything to English. And on the way out, that same translation module translates from English to the user language. Essentially, when we speak about multilingual capability, pretty much all of it boils down to how you configure that translation module. And currently, the translation is enabled through an LLM, but there are other ways of handling translation. You can, perhaps there's an open source API service that we are not aware of and that you would like to explore, or there are other models that you would like to use for translation. And by other models, I refer to architectures other than transformer LLMs. So there's plenty of room for innovation there. And speaking of data sets, yes, there are already, for the 3 use cases, there are data sets in local languages, which are relevant to the use cases, and these data sets will be further complemented or enhanced with additional data that is actually being curated as we speak now by the use case owners. I hope that answers your question, and if not, please feel free to drop a clarifying question in the chat, and I'll try to address it.
Just to add to this a little, there's the data sets themselves that are provided by the use case owners ultimately will be curated into English anyway, because they're going to be designed to be loaded into the RAG solution, as far as I'm aware.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. For the ingestion, currently what would be the most practical solution is that to ingest these documents in local languages, you translate them in English first, using whatever translation tool you prefer, and then you ingest the English translations. However, these same datasets could also be used to fine-tune the model that you implement for the translation microservice or the translation module, should you choose to go that way?
Thank you very much, Roman and David. I think it addressed well the question, and actually there were further components to that question, but we've covered them. So whether the applicants would get help from people, especially in Lesotho, because I think the question relates to the agriculture use case, whether they could get some help to gather data on the crops and diseases and for better model performance. So I think this is part of the whole process of having identified these use cases with sister UN agencies and countries with concrete requirements. So you will have access to actual experts that will help you while you are working on your respective innovations in the free use cases. The next question, I think, has been quite has been in good part addressed. So can we work in a team or as an individual in the process? So this was answered. What are the deadlines? Maybe, Antonia, would be good to just give, again, to repeat the various stages of the process, just to make sure we are all clear about it.
Sure. In the interest of time, I will not go through every stage. It is on the main page of the website. You can go and look. There's also a Q&A session that was done when we first opened the challenge, and I recommend you listen to that in terms of having details of the stages. However, I will say that the application deadline is December 1st. So this is very important that your application is in by December 1st, or it will not be considered for the challenge.
All right. Thank you very much, Antonia. Still from the same applicant, we've got two other questions, but they were in part answered. So will we get resources to train the AI models? So you will get access to a computational environment with sufficient GPU power to train your models and to develop and test your applications. But this will open to semi-finalists post selection. So that will be late January, when the whole challenge, the actual real development, will take place. Last one from the same applicant. Will we get expert help should we need it? And I said it, you will have access to experts in each of the free use cases from a UN sister agency, from ITU, from IEEE, but also from the country itself. I'm trying to finish just three more questions from the spreadsheet, and then we can go with live questions online. Okay. So the first question. So I'm an extension specialist at Colorado State University focusing on agriculture, and I reviewed the use case on AI-powered agriculture extension chatbot in Lesotho for my application. Am I allowed to frame the project around agricultural needs in Colorado or neighboring US states? Or does the proposal need to focus specifically on Lesotho's agriculture context and data? I think the answer is obvious, that what we are seeking is actual innovations being developed for the countries at stake within the given use case. So addressing the requirements of the use case. It doesn't prevent from having something reusable in other countries or other regions, but it's got to first and foremost address the use case requirements in the country at stake to be eligible as a potential development in our challenge. Antonia, do you want to add anything to this?
Oh, I think that was quite clear.
Okay, thank you. Almost the last question. So presumably the info is in the native language. We can use English as a base model and then translate it into a standard non-English language, as long as it's not unusual dialect. Is this correct? I think this was addressed by David and Roman already. So we don't necessarily have to answer again. And last one from the spreadsheet, how AI affect agriculture and food security? I think this is a rather vague and large question, which partly the challenge is seeking to address with free use cases in these areas. Um, so I think we're done with the online spreadsheet. I think we can go live now with questions from the participants.
David, if you don't mind, Roman, for the recording, do you mind emphasizing that last comment you put in the chat? Because those viewing the recording will not be able to see the chat at the same time.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'll just read it out. So to clarify, because there were a couple of questions that I think sort of implicitly suggested that teams are concerned about being at a disadvantage if they do not have knowledge of the local languages that are relevant to the three use cases. So just to address this, you will not be at a disadvantage because you are not proficient in the local languages. We have specifically planned that there will be a process through which every team, at least every finalist team, will be supported by country colleagues with questions that concern data, any local requirements, or any other necessary contextualization or localization work. So just please don't be concerned about not knowing or not having any background context about the country. What you really need is already documented in use case documentation and user journeys, plus other resources that we have provided to you. So this is sufficient for you to start. And then once the process picks up, there will be additional support and additional guidance provided to you directly from our colleagues in countries.
Great, thank you. I'll pass it back to you, David, now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Antonia. I think we should start from the top of the chat because we've got some questions that were raised at the beginning. So let me go through them. So the first is, when filing out the application, should all team members complete the form, or is it enough for only the team leader to fill it out? I think this is for you, Antonia. So the question is whether as a team you have to fill it. You are muted.
Yes, sorry, I'm just rereading the application to make sure that, or reading the questions that I can make sure that I have this. So not all team members need to complete the form. So the suggestion is to, of course, work with your team members on completing the form, but only one person will actually be registered with the platform that submits the application. And so you will list all of your team members who have worked with you, and everybody who will be working with you in the future. However, only one person, the team leader, will fill out that form. If there's any more questions on that, please feel free to put it in the chat and I can elaborate.
I think it is quite clear. Thank you, Antonia. Next question is technical. So does GENIE.AI/OPIA require me to provide the GPU myself, local or cloud virtual machines? Or do the OPIA framework services include GPU compute on their end? In other words, is any GPU power provisioned by the organizers, or is all GPU hardware my responsibility? I think we've covered it earlier on in phase 2. If you are selected as a semi-finalist and therefore will develop your innovative solution for one of the 3 use cases, you will have access to the compute environment where you will be provided with sufficient GPU resources. I don't know, maybe Roman, you want to add something to this?
Sorry, David, I was just monitoring questions in the chat, so I missed a little bit the.
No
Could you
problem.
repeat?
No, I was tentatively answering the question whether we
Mm.
would provide any GPU resources as part of the challenge. So I said that in phase 2, once and if the participants are selected as semi-finalists and therefore engage in the developments for one of the 3 use cases, they will indeed be provided with a compute infrastructure comprising GPUs and so on to exercise and
Yep.
test their developments.
Yes. And for information, the GPU that will be made available to the participating teams are going to be L40S GPUs. So you can see the specifications online, but these are pretty pretty powerful, pretty capable GPUs, so you'll be able to deploy larger models and also to do some fine-tuning work, shall you choose to do so.
Thank you, Roman. Uh, Next question. Is it allowed to build on top of existing open source frameworks that already integrate geodata, for example, SMAP-related toolkits or similar libraries? Or does the challenge explicitly require us to perform all data pre-processing and geodata integration ourselves without relying on external frameworks? Roman, I
So,
think you want to. And David?
you want Roman to answer this, or you want me to? I'm okay to if you want. So this one, you're free to use whatever framework you want for any type of data processing at all. So the only requirement that we have is that you actually use GENIE.AI as the RAG framework. So if you want to develop a data pipeline and process at any old how ML, whatever you want to use, PyTorch or whatever, then just go right ahead. We're fine with that.
If I may add to this, I would strongly suggest, if you do so, to as much as possible go for open source solutions as third-party providers, so to make sure that the resulting innovation it remains within the open source field and is scalable and within the scope of the application. This is one criteria that will be assessed by the evaluators. All right, next question. Please, can you support me if such country like South Sudan can also apply because I developed my AL in section for agriculture and that are most important to my country, more especially technologies needed as all of you know the background of this country. I think we said, Antonia said it rightly at the beginning, so everyone is encouraged to apply. It's not because we have defined three target countries for the use cases that the others are excluded. You are all encouraged to apply. You just need to make sure that you are addressing the requirements of the one of the free use cases. But your solution is, of course, encouraged to be reusable in other contexts, other regions of the world. Next question. Let me see. If we have a technical prototype ready, including user management, etc., do we need to still use the GENIE.AI open source framework? I think we made it pretty clear that the technical framework is provided as an integrative layer. We do require all applicants to demonstrate in their design proposal during the first phase in the application process to demonstrate how they will integrate that framework. The point being to come up with a community solution that's reusable and that extends the existing framework. That said, there are various ways and levels of integration. So it's up to you to define how deep you want to go into integration given your expected innovation. Next question. I already developed the GENIE.AI in sector for agriculture, but there is no option for attachment. The option only for staff members CV uploading. Sector for agriculture, but there is no option for it. I think that this relates to the actual fondant platform and the possibility to attach documents. I don't know, Antonia, can you further precise how much the applicants can provide any attachments to their applications? Because I think this is what the question is about.
Okay. Yeah, so it actually, when you see the instructions on top of the page, you will see that it says specifically do not add attachments unless otherwise stated. There is, I believe, well, actually, I'm not going to state how many. There's only a couple questions that leave maybe one, two, or three questions that have one spot for an attachment. That is the only spot you can add an attachment. Please do not add other information you want to include in that attachment because it will only be evaluated based on that question. So the the short answer here is that you should not attach any attachments unless specifically stated in the question.
Thank you very much, Antonia. Next technical question. I have been reviewing the GENIE.AI plus OPIA frameworks, and while it includes several LLM-based components, I haven't seen anything aimed at more numerical or computational AV tasks, for instance, geospatial data processing, numerical analysis, etc. Can someone clarify whether GENIE.AI/OPIA provides any built-in tools or models suitable for this kind of numerical/geodata processing, or would we need to handle that part entirely outside the framework?
I'll lean in on that one, David. I actually answered this in the chat, but essentially, if you do anything that's LLM based, it's supported by our framework. So if you want to do, geospatial data processing with an LLM that's been set up for it, as long as it's supported by VLLM, then it can actually be mounted directly into the framework itself, into both OPIA and GENIE.AI. That being said, if you want to do heavy processing of numerical data, then you're probably going to need to use a more specific tool set and an LLM for it. And at the end of the day, that's something that could, be a valuable extension. So how you articulate that in your proposal and what you're proposing there should, like David said a number of times, it must be open source to start with. And then secondly, we'd love to see how you plan to integrate that into GENIE.AI.
Thank you, David. Next question, I think, is for Antonia. The registration portal mentions that we need to first register through Foundant. However, when trying through register there, the button apply does not appear. But when attempting through register through the IEEE portal, it is possible. But I am unsure if that is the right way. Are the instructions up to date?
The instructions are up to date. If you are having trouble, if you're able to access it through if you're an IEEE member and you're able to access it through your portal, that's fine. You can do that through your membership. However, we have many people who are applying who are not IEEE members. Um, in this case, please, I'm going to put a link in the chat for our inquiry system. Please submit an inquiry there and I can support you directly because we are finding that many people are able to register from many places. And so it may be an individual issue that we can resolve, but we will figure out how to get you in. And please send a question immediately. If you are watching the recording and you're having a similar problem, my suggestion is please at the bottom of each use case page, you go all the way to the bottom, it says questions here. Please click on that and submit a question there, an inquiry. This will help me track and be able to help you individually.
Thank you, Antonia. Next question, I think, relates to one of the online spreadsheet question is actually the follow-up. So based on the fact that we cannot apply as an organization, as team members of the Climate Health Program from the Global Health Institute, we cannot apply in the name of the program. We should then apply as individuals, question mark. So I think the answer is yes. One individual has to apply. You can apply as a team, but there has to be one individual application, and that's on behalf of the person and not the organization nor the program. All right. Next question. Next question. Just a second, going down the list. So regarding the workflow, so first each individual must apply, correct, individually. Then one of the team members will submit the challenge use case application, question mark. So first each individual must apply, correct. Then one of the team members will submit the challenge use case application. So I think it's the same question, actually.
I agree, David. I think it is. If it's not, please write the question again in the chat and rephrase for us.
Okay, so I'm going down the list. Okay, so there is one short mention for the case of the South Sudan and the support for directives. I think everything is clearly written on the website. The whole process, all documentation is available there. If you have any doubts, you can raise new questions, or just watch this recording and the former one to have answers. Then could you please clarify the following? So first, is it permitted to use data from publicly accessible repositories, such as, for instance, IEEE Dataport, ITU AI repository, Google Open Datasets for this challenge? I think the answer is yes. We will be providing base training datasets for each and every of the three use cases. But depending on what you intend to develop, and of course, in light of the requirements expressed for the use case you are applying for, you are free to bring in any publicly available data for further precising or training your models. David, do you want to add anything on this?
No, I think we're well covered there.
Actually, second point, you may have a say because they are asking if there are any licensing or usage restrictions that they should be aware of when using such data sets.
Yeah, absolutely. So the requirement from our side is that any data sets that are used for fine tuning or training or any other activity, even ingestion into RAG, must be available in, at least under an open source license or provided by the use case owner.
Okay.
So pretty simple. That's just
Uh,
to prevent any legal exposure.
yeah. Is there a preferred citation format required for these data sets if they are used in the submission? I don't know, Antonio, I don't think we've precised any formats for citing these types of external data sets, right?
I am not, I'm not sure I'm 100% clear on the question. I think no, we do not. David and Roman, there's a question that specifically states the licensing that's needed, and it states the information that it's asking for. Please respond to that directly. Again, if there's any follow-up questions once you reread that question, you're welcome to submit this to the inquiry and we can follow up. But I do not think we have it stated in that way.
I think that the question, the third component of the question rather relates to the academic style of citation.
Oh, the academics, my apologies. Yeah. No, we have not stated your academic style of citation.
So it's up to the applicants then.
Yes, it's up to the applicants. Thank you for restating. I missed that second part as I was responding to another question. Thank you.
All right, so next question we've addressed already. Then following one is we've addressed as well. Just give me just a minute to go down the long list. Are we allowed to use other RAG frameworks other than the stated one, GENIE.AI? David, I think you already addressed that question in the chat, but I think it's good to voice it again for everyone following.
That's okay, not a problem. So the simple answer to that is no. But there's one thing that I need to make people aware of, which is why I pasted that link to the information sessions. So during the technical information session, we covered a whole list of roadmap items. And one of the items that's covered in that session is around a technology called Haystack by DeepSet. So given that GENIE.AI is like an umbrella framework, it utilizes OPIA. We do like a kind of multi-layered build on top of OPIA for it. We are also very keen to implement multiple back-end RAG framework options, one of which is actually Haystack. So Haystack would be the other permissible stack to use, so long as it's integrated with GenieAI. So what I suggest you do if you're looking at Haystack, firstly, understand what Haystack's all about. Secondly, have a look at the technical information session video, which will give you a bit more detail. And then thirdly, let us know if you're going to pick that task up in your proposal, because we can actually get you engaged with the DeepSet team and they can probably help you to get that done.
Thank you, David. Next question is more about the actual access to expertise. So could you kindly clarify at which specific stage we are permitted to seek supporting organizations? I think, Antonia, you may want to give it the first answer.
Yes, I can jump in here. I just want to get Roman, do you have a response to the previous question that you wanted to share something for?
Yes, just very quickly. So to provide some context, right? We are encouraging everyone to use GenieAI, not just because we like the name or something, but there are a set of functionalities or capabilities that we've developed specifically with public sector requirements in mind. So these capabilities include, among other, a hybrid retrieval approach which combines four retrieval methods. Right, we're using a vector similarity search, we're using keyword search, we're using knowledge graph traversal, and we're using a custom labeling system. So if you have a retrieval augmented generation framework in mind where you can replicate all of these four functionalities, I think we would be interested to see it, but it needs to match the same capabilities that are currently offered with GenieAI. So I just wanted to precise this, and of course, it has to be open source.
Thank you, Roman. Antonia, yes,
Yes,
you wanted to say
back to
something.
back to the other question. So we'll jump back to the question that was about when, if my understanding of the question was when will you be able to have contact with in-country contacts as well as those
UN.
organizations that are working there. So finalists will have direct contact with them. We will be able to, if you are moved forward to the next stage, which will only be 9 teams, then you will be able to collaborate with those organizations. And so at that point, then you can adapt. Of course, there will be things that need to change and adapt, and that will be the time to do that with those contacts. However, if you have a question about the use case, something specific in the use case that you want to clarify, you can also use our inquiry form.
Yes. Thank you, Antonia. And beware that for each of the three use cases, as we said, we have UN sister agencies involved and proper experts, not only from the agencies, but also on the field in the countries. And so you will be really well supported to address any questions you may have in your developments. Next question, Antonia, you have addressed it in the chat, but I just want to make sure it is voiced. So in the application form, we do not use our IEEE account, but set up a new one for the challenge. Is this correct? Also, the application asks about organization, but you mentioned we should be individuals. Should we put NA, not applicable?
Yeah, so these are both great questions. For those who are IEEE members and already have an IEEE account with Foundant, which are some people in our network already have this, many do not. If you do, you can use your account if you're able to access the form and you want to use your IEEE account, that's not a problem. As a member, you can use that. However, if it makes more sense for you as a team to create a new account, you're also able to do that. So it's up to you based on what makes the most sense for you. As for the question about the organization, you do need to and should list your organization. That's part of us identifying who you are as an individual. So it's important that that information is there. However, you are not applying as that organization.
Thank you, Antonia. there are just two last ones. Actually, one is about where to find all of the previous session documentations. This is just to make sure that you've seen that the URLs to pertinent resources have been put in the chat. So there is a YouTube channel with all former webinars and info sessions online that you can consult, and there are about a few, I think a dozen already. So you have access to a wealth of information in there, but there is also the website of the challenge for each of the use cases where you will find the useful resources in all pertinent documentation you may need for your application. I see that Nurhan Maidli placed several times the same question in the chat on his organization and how to apply, if not as an organization. So just Nurhan, just to make sure that you've heard our answer, we've addressed twice this question. So you've got to apply as an individual. You cannot apply as an organization nor as a program. You can apply as a team, but it's got to be an individual application in the founding system. I think that's about it. Yeah, I think it is about it. So we are done with the questions in the chat. We are done with the questions on the online spreadsheet. Now, if there are any live questions, they are welcome. The floor is yours. Please raise your hand, and I think we can just let them open their mic and voice the question. All right, no further questions.
I'm just going to mention, David, that I've put the inquiry form one more time in the chat. If you're listening to the recording, you can access this on our website. The easiest place to find it is if you go into the focus area that you already are interested in, and then go to the bottom of that page, you will find the link to questions. However, as David already mentioned, there is so much information, and we know it's a lot of information to digest, because we want you to have access to the details, but there are different formats, right? So there's ways to watch it on video on the YouTube channel. There are ways to read through the documents. I strongly recommend that if you have not read through the application yet, please read through the application, because you will see exactly how much detail you are asked to provide. But David, would you like to close out, or would you like me to close out here?
You can, I may say just a few words and then you can close.
Perfect.
Just to thank everyone for attending this call. And of course, you're free to ask as many questions as you need until the submission deadline. We are really glad to see that much interest, and that's already a couple of sessions we've gone through, and we can see there is quite some traction, and really we are here to help. We understand it's a lot of information, but in the end, just make sure you've well understood the use cases, requirements, the context in which they are formalized. Make sure you integrate the technical framework, which is just here to help you with accelerating and focusing on your own developments, and everything will go fine. You will see that the application is not so heavy. You have to come up with a design proposal, because we're not into a simple one-day hackathon. It's really a challenge over 3 months with a real intention to make an impact and scale, and you will have support and be really helped in getting in touch with the countries in scaling up your development. So please invest sufficient energy and really make the case for your innovations for each of the 3 use cases that you will be applying for. And with this, Antonia, I'll leave you closing the call.
Well, that's perfect. You said nearly everything I would have said. So we're very excited to see everything you submit, all you come up with, all the skills your team has to offer. And David, I think, covered everything out. So thank you for joining today, and thank you for your interest in this challenge.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Antonia. And looking forward to receiving all applications. Bye-bye.